the agenda is to receive the first officer report on today's agenda, and that's the revenue budget outturn for 2023 to 2024. And I will ask our Chief Officer for Finance, Housing and Change to present this report. Carys, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Just for the sake of the recording, I am Carys Lord and I'm the Chief Officer for Finance, Housing and Change. So the purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update on the revenue financial performance for the financial year ended the 31st of March 2024. The approved net revenue budget for last year was £342.334 million. The final outturn position for last year is shown in Table 1 of your report. The overall outturn for the last financial year is a net overspend of £7.054 million. Within the outturn position, Directorate budgets overspent by £13.8 million, whilst council-wide budgets had a net underspend of £5.3 million. The outturn position also takes account of additional council tax income which was collected over budget during the financial year. The 2023-2024 financial year was a very difficult one for the council, and this is the first time that Bridgend Council has reported an overspend at the end of the financial year. The council is certainly not alone in this position, with all councils in Wales reporting significant budget pressures at the current time. The main service pressures are in the service areas of social services and wellbeing, home to school transport, homelessness and legal services. During last year, social services continued to experience pressure of work to meet statutory duties against a backdrop of an exponential increase in demand in children's social care and an increase in the number of independent residential placements within children's services, alongside pressures in learning disability and older people's residential placements. The Council considered and agreed a 3-year sustainability plan for children's services in September last year, and this provided a more permanent solution for the service, with additional funding being agreed in 2023-2024, and then further funding being approved as part of the financial budget setting for the current financial year. There has also been an overspend on the home to school transport budget of £1.78 million in the last financial year. During 22-23, several re-tendering exercises took place, which resulted in higher costs across many of the contracts. Further contracts were then re-tendered during 23-24, and higher costs continued to be experienced. The Council has seen a significant increase in the provision of temporary accommodation to support individuals who become homeless, following changes in Welsh Government legislation during the pandemic, which have remained in place. There was an overspend on housing and homelessness of £240,000 last year. There was also considerable pressure on legal fees in the past year, primarily as the service increased support in relation to public and private law childcare cases. In addition, the Council had to continue to address funding pressures during the last financial year in relation to pay and price costs. The report details for you progress made against the savings requirements for the period 23-24 and those identified in the last financial year. These can be seen in section 3.2 of your report. During last year, savings of £2.36 million were found, a shortfall of £346,000 against the savings required last year. There is a great deal of information in the report in section 3.3, which details the position for you for each main service area. The financial position of many of these services has been reported throughout the last year. Whilst there are some service-specific issues, there are savings reported in all revenue budgets in relation to staff vacancies. Throughout the year, many services have been unable to fill vacancies at all levels, despite advertising posts on many occasions. And then in addition, during the year, a selective freeze on staff recruitment was put in place as a measure to reduce the anticipated overspend position. The report also provides an update with regards to the earmarked reserves that the Council is currently holding. During 2023-24, Directorates drew down funding from specific earmarked reserves, and these were reported to Cabinet through the quarterly monitoring reports. The final drawdown from revenue reserves was 12.186 million last year, and this is summarised in Table 4 of your report. The Council has to deliver a balanced revenue account at the year end, so needs to determine how that overspend will be funded. The options at year end were to take the funding from earmarked reserves or to take the funding from the Council Fund. The net overspend position of £7.04 million required the unwinding of some existing earmarked reserves, excuse me, together with the transfer of £102,000 from the Council Fund to balance the budget at year end. The Council Fund now stands at 4.3% of the Council's net revenue budget, which is below the 5% which is stated in the Medium-Term Financial Strategy Principle 9, which states it should be 5%. It's important to note as well that given the overall overspend position at the end of last year, it was not possible to create any new earmarked reserves at the year end. A full breakdown of the movements and earmarked reserves as at the end of March 2024 is provided for you at Appendix 4. It should be noted that the monies that the Council has in reserves has fallen over the past year by a net figure of £28.6 million. This position will be closely monitored in future years as services cannot be funded from reserves in the longer term. The financial position is challenging for the Council, and as a result we are putting measures in place in this new financial year to try to address that. The 5-point action plan that was implemented last year is remaining in place, and just as a reminder, that includes a selective vacancy freeze, only essential goods and services to be purchased, a review of our fees and charges, ensuring that the grants we are able to claim are spent to support the Council and are also claimed in a timely manner, and also to review the use of our buildings to rationalise our usage. We will also be setting up meetings to take place at senior management at Cabinet member level to look at the details in this report and to look at the mitigating actions that can be taken to bring the budget back. We did an all members briefing earlier this week on the financial position, and there will be increased information made available to members throughout the year so that all members are kept informed of the current financial position. So if I may, Mr Deputy Mayor, I'd like to bring your attention to the recommendations in section 9 of this report, namely that Council is recommended to note the revenue outturn position for the financial year 2023-2024. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Caris, can I have a mover and seconder for the report?
I'll formally
please?
move, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Granville. And I'm seconder as well, please.
I'll second.
And thank you for that, Councillor Lewis. I'll now take the speakers in the order in which they appear on my screen. And the first is Councillor Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I may have been a little bit fast on the button, and I don't know whether I should perhaps defer to either the Cabinet member or the leader to say something first. I don't mind.
Thank you for that offer, Councillor Bledsoe. Did you want to come in first, leader?
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bledsoe. I've got a great deal to say. This is a factual report which you can't change. It's last year. It's the performance of last year. It's not great reading. And first, thanks to all the team and the finance team for bringing all this together. It's not an easy job keeping control of everything that's going on in the budget of nearly £500 million. But it is what it is, and it's not good enough. We cannot continue this year and future years in that way. And I'd just like to say that there is work ongoing. There's no regular monthly meetings, revenue meetings, capital meetings, monitoring boards behind the scenes to try and control and put a lid on the expenditure. Yeah, I mean, currently we're still estimating overspend this year, but not as much as previous years. But we need to get back to living within our means, and hence the statement I made earlier. We have to change some things we do, and some things we'll have to stop doing. But there is progress being made in social services. There's an action plan in place, and the overspend is reducing. And there's decisions made yesterday at Cabinet. They're not ones we wanted to make, to do with learner travel, and they in the future will bring down some of the overspend. But there's still other work needs to be done, And we are operating under essential spend only. And I said this yesterday in Cabinet, and I'll say it again today. I expect every single officer of this authority that has a responsibility for spending money or has a delegated authority to spend money, they consider every penny they spend for everything they purchase and everything they do. And that goes right through the organisation. If there's somebody there spending money that can be saved or not spent or done a different way, well, they need to be questioned, because we are on essential spend only, and we need to bring the budget in as close to the amount we have available. We can only live within our means. So there's some difficult decisions coming, and I hope there'll be support across this chamber to take those difficult decisions as and when they arise in the months ahead. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I'll bring Councillor Bledsoe back in. Thank you for that, Councillor Bledsoe.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And this week has been rather sobering as a councillor of this authority, with the briefing that Carys mentioned on Monday and watching the Cabinet meeting yesterday, and now this report today, all obviously linked. I need to have some understanding here, because there are in accountancy variances, and budgets can vary. They're what you hope to spend. But these figures are astronomical, both this report and what was presented to Cabinet yesterday as to what the current overspend already in Q1 is for this year. So can I please have an understanding as to how the budgets that were proposed were deemed to be balanced and lawful when they are this wide on the variances? Because all of those sobering words I've heard in the last 48 hours, a little bit longer, lead me to be concerned over how we are putting forward budgets that are properly done on all of these departments. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bledsoe. I'll invite Carys to respond to that as the Chief Finance Officer. Carys, please.
Thank you for that question. When we put the budget together, we make assumptions, and we make assumptions across a whole number of different factors. Some of that will be the money available to the council. Some of that will be around cost pressures in relation to pay and non-pay areas of spend. And there will be assumptions in there as well around service demand. I think what I would point members to is this is the first time we have ever had to report to you an overspend. Last year was exceptional. And our assumptions, I would still say, were valid for last year, but things happened in the sort of economic context and with regards to demand for services that we couldn't have predicted at that time. And what I would say is that if Bridgend was alone in having to report this kind of financial pressure last year, I think I would be probably far more worried than many of you. But I mean, I don't think we will. We're not alone. I think what happened last year was it was challenging. Inflation remained high during the year, and I just outlined how that was coming through in our budgets, in what we're purchasing by way of goods and services, and I outlined the home to school transport issue when I introduced this report. We've also seen exponential demand continue across the services at our level that we wouldn't have anticipated. So we've reported that in social services throughout the year. We've also had it with regard to homelessness, where applications for temporary accommodation have remained high. We've had discussions about that as we've gone through the year, and as the leader has said, there is a sustainability plan in place for social services, and we are starting to see that coming through in the budget in the new year. And we've had an increasing demand and value against all of the contracts and services that we've put down in the year at a level that we couldn't have anticipated when this budget was put together. Therefore, I would say I think the assumptions made when we set the 23-24 budget were reasonable at the time, and they can only ever be at the time you made that decision. Things continued with the cost of living crisis as we were all a bit experienced in our own lives as well in the last year, and you build that up for an organisation that's a £500 million spend, then it's had a significant impact for us during the year.
Thank you for that, Carys. Next, we've got Councillor Amanda Williams, please. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Carys, for your rather sobering report. My question is around the revenue reserves. You said that we're below the 5%, so obviously anything we do this year, we don't want to take any more out of those revenue reserves, and we need to top them back up to above the 5%. So My question is, are we aware of the position with other local authorities and whether they're also finding that they're eating into their reserves and they've gone below the 5%? And if so, given the change in government now UK-wide, are you working with other local authorities to speak to our new UK government about the level of funding that's coming through? Because we're talking about making cuts and making difficult decisions, but unless the money is coming through, we're not going to get out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Caris, please.
Thank you for that question. If I could just clarify, the reserve that is the council fund has dipped below the 5%, not our reserves generally. The council fund has dipped below 5%. And for me, that is a concern because we don't have the resilience across our budget that we may have had a few years ago. So our reserves haven't fallen below that 5%, but the council fund has. We are pulling down on reserves, as I've outlined, and as you've rightly said, Councillor Williams, we're not alone in that. Other authorities are doing the same thing. Other authorities have used their reserves at times to balance their budget. But again, all authorities are reporting that they cannot afford to continue pulling down at this level. So we're certainly not alone in that position currently. With regards to your question about lobbying, yes, there's a lot of lobbying going on, certainly at officer level, and I think at political level as well, with regards to the money coming down. It's probably too early to say whether or not a change of government in Westminster will bring more money down to the local authorities, but certainly I know there is a lot of lobbying going on with regards to the impact. There are authorities in England who are, as you know, already facing significant financial difficulties, and you know, there will be a question about whether any government would want to see their local government sector go under.
Thank you for that, Caris. I'll bring in the Deputy Leader on that point that Councillor Williams was making about the lobbying.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Williams. I actually met with Jo Stevens on Monday to lobby her for money for local government. I want to say I was very blunt with her when I said that Welsh Labour government had protected us here in Wales, which is quite indicative in the fact that no local authority here in Wales has issued a Section 114 currently. And you will be aware that other local authorities in England have not had that same protection. I did inform her that across Wales, because you will be aware that the leader and I, and now Councillor Eugene Kaparos and Councillor Mel all sit on the WLGA. That's one of the reasons we were speaking to them, but we are making those recommendations because we are in the position whereby Wales will not be able to protect every local authority here. And I'm not suggesting that's Bridgend, that's a Wales-wide position. We do not want to be in that position, and I am sure that a Westminster Labour administration will not want Wales, considering they hold us in such high regard here in Wales in relation to protection. I am sure that they will be using that as some sort of basis. The leader and I are also meeting with Elined and Hugh David tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will be making those representations as well. It's vitally important that they protect public services in Wales. We are the biggest employers here in Wales as well, which is significant because if we go under, our residents go under as well. There is no private business to pick them up. So I just thought it was worth mentioning that. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. And of course, the new Secretary of State for Wales is Jo Stevens, isn't it? So that's the person you're referring to. Next is Councillor Martin Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The question is my question is less really about the absolutes of funding and more our ability to forecast correctly and to manage what little funds we have. I'm looking back through my papers for the first quarter of this year, and I can't find anything that indicates to us that we were facing a £7 million overspend as of the 31st of March or the end of the financial year. And I've looked in the budget papers and I can't find it in there. So my question is, and I'll put a rider on the back of this question if that's okay. My question is, what was the assumption when we passed this robust and balanced budget for this coming year on the 28th of February, some 5 weeks before the end of the financial year? What was the assumption for the year-end position? Did we have a £7 million assumption as a year-end overspend at that point? And the rider is that we then had to unwind, presumably in an unplanned fashion, reserves which were predicated for something else. So because of the inability to properly understand where we would land 5 weeks out from the financial year end, we then were presumably rushed into unwinding those reserves, which could have helped protect services or could have helped save further expenditure down the line. So it's really a question of what did we project what was the assumption at the time we set the budget on the 28th of February, and why is there any difference if there is indeed a difference?
Thank you for that. Councillor Williams-Carys, please.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Williams. I think I just have to say this, that I would never, in my statutory responsibilities, put forward a budget for you to approve that I didn't think we could meet. It was carrying risk, and that was made clear. But I would never, and it would go against my statutory responsibilities to suggest to you that you set a budget that was not balanced. So when we set that budget on the 1st of March 2023, we set a balanced budget based on assumptions as I outlined when I answered a previous question this afternoon. If you go back into your budget papers, actually at this time last year, we were starting then to say that that budget was under pressure. And the reasons for those pressures are outlined in all of the budget monitoring reports that you had throughout last year. So it was about inflation, it was about pay awards that came in higher than anticipated, and it was about exponential demand across so many of our services. And so many of our services have to be demand-led because we have a statutory duty to meet that demand. And as a result, we were seeing very early in the year that that demand had increased at a level that we hadn't anticipated.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, Mr. Bear, can I come back? Because that's not the question I asked. It's a good answer, but it's to a different question. The question I asked was, what was the assumption we made when we set this year's budget, the 24-25 budget, which we set in February? What was the assumption that we made that our year-end position would be some 5 weeks later? Because we were then forced into a position, which is outlined in this paper, that we had to unwind reserves to fund the underspend that were intended for something else. So at what point did we understand that there would be an underspend, and at what point did we understand the quantum of that? Because we could have had a more meaningful conversation about, or the Cabinet or the Council could have had a more meaningful understanding about how to unwind those reserves, because it looks like it's after the fact now, rather than being a decision that could have been made with some foresight.
Thanks, Councillor Williams-Carys, please.
My apologies, Councillor Williams. I thought you were talking about the setting of the budget for last year. When we've made, and this report is actually talking about last year's figures, so I'm sorry if I was confused. When we set the budget for this year, again, we've made assumptions, and actually what growth we had available to us last year was put into the service areas where we knew that some of the pressures that were existing last year were likely to roll forward into this year. So I mean, this isn't about this year, but when you look at this year's budget, there was growth in social services, there was growth in home to school transport, there was growth in relation to services like legal services. So actually we did, in our assumptions, assume that some of the issues that we had in last year would run forward into this year. With regards to the drawdown of reserves, we drew down just over 12 million from our revenue reserves. Some of that was planned in year, and we knew about it at the time that we were planning last year's budget. And then, for instance, Council agreed the extra £2.5 million for children's services from reserves last year. That was agreed in September, and we drew that down at the end of the year as we had planned to do. However, as I said, because of the level of the overspend, we did have to, at the year end, go through reserves and un-earmark them. And that was done on a prioritisation basis about what those earmarks reserves were for, and also about risk to the authority if we unravelled those particular reserves.
Thank you for that explanation, Gareth. That's helpful. Councillor Thomas is next, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologies, I called you Deputy Leader, I think. My question relates to the risk tracker. And I note that some of the more transport and highways budget reductions that weren't achieved, the reason being was the prioritisation of staff onto the Welsh Government 20 miles per hour policy. And these measures are anticipated to be achieved in the autumn of this year. But I'm just concerned that over any proposed review of the 20 mile per hour policy, any future monitoring of it, the implications of tackling signage and that sort of thing could further jeopardise these budget measures. So in particular, charging the blue badge holders free parking. I don't want to deprive them of that, of course, but really, if these how likely are these particular budget measures likely to be achieved, given the potential for future implications of the 20 mile per hour policy? Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Thomas. I'll bring in the Corporate Director of Communities to address that question. Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Thomas for the question. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Janine Nightingale, the Corporate Director for Communities. I think the point you've made is valid. Currently, the calls to review the 20 mile an hour roads are going to Welsh Government. We've not had those. They're going there. We will then review them ourselves, take a look at them, and then we may, if we deem it necessary, make some changes. However, at the time, Councillor Thomas, I do believe Bridgend was held up actually highly in that we had implemented the 20 mile an hour policy, probably with least amount of comments across LAs. That doesn't mean people won't campaign to have the areas changed, of course. So at this moment in time, I can't tell you exactly what the demand will be. In the coming months, we'll know more. And yes, we may very well have to look at the workload. But what is very clear is that we couldn't proceed with the disabled blue badge charging because we had to prioritise the 20 mile an hour because it had an implementation date. However, this change now doesn't. And we can look at what the priorities are for the team and hopefully move some of that work forward, because as the leader had said earlier in his statement to you, we are looking at about car parking charges across the council, and as part of that, in any consultation we propose, we can roll up the blue badge parking. So I am hoping we can bring some of that forward. It will not be the panacea for our financial ills, I'm afraid. This is just about charging people who have a blue badge to park. So we will get a small amount of income from it. However, we've got much bigger challenges as a council overall. So thank you for that, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you for that, Janine. And then lastly, we have Councillor Penhill Thomas, please.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, and thank you to the officers for the report this afternoon. I'd like to concentrate on social services, whereby the overspend seems to range on some programmes and projects from 55k to £2.28 million. The narrative clearly explains that this is driven what looks like to be largely increased need and a higher number of placements. Notwithstanding that there's a laser-like focus, I think, through the Social Services and Wellbeing Improvement Board on both finance and service delivery, as well as the additional monies that Carys has alluded to for children's services. We know that if we are to set a budget on the 31st of March and implement it on the 1st of April, for example, that budget can be blown within days if the authority is to assume the responsibility, for example, a number of children who come in as looked after. Similar circumstances can exist within social services as well. So it could be a perennial question. How are we squaring the circle that social services is primarily, always has been, probably always will be, a demand-led service versus the reality of having to cut our cloth appropriately to the funds that we've got, the limited funds, and increasingly difficult, challenging funds as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that question, Councillor Penhill Thomas. I'll bring in the Corporate Director for Social Services and Wellbeing to answer that. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I'm Claire Marchant, Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. So what we've done, as you know, Councillor Thomas, we've developed a sustainability plan for children and families in the county borough. What that plan tries to do is to align all the actions from a service and a financial perspective to try and get us into the most cost-effective set of arrangements that we can to support the most vulnerable children and families across Bridgend. It aligns work that we've got to do to rebalance how we work to be far more targeted in the preventative work that we do, to secure a permanent workforce, to remodel the way that we practice from a social work perspective. We're implementing Science and Safety as the model of practice, which is based on strong relationships with families, about keeping families together, and therefore in time reducing the number of placements that we need to make, which is really where costs are being driven in children's services. I think, as the leader has alluded to, we are starting to see some of the impact of that work. It's not fast. You can't do this overnight. It takes years, and that's where we have set out the plan for 3 years, but with very, very clear milestones over that 3-year period, which are being monitored and being achieved at the moment in terms of meeting those milestones. We'll also be bringing forward a similar plan, a similar 3-year plan for adult services to Cabinet in the autumn of this year. It's gone through the scrutiny committee and it's subject to consultation and engagement over the summer period. It's not straightforward, it's not easy, it's very risky. As Caris has already said this afternoon, because these are demand-driven budgets. We know that one placement in children's services can cost £500,000 a year, but these are evidence-based and the right set of actions, building on best practice, in Wales and across the UK, about how to be sustainable in that social services offer.
Thank you for that explanation. I can't see that anyone else wants to come in. So can I ask take members to the report's recommendation, which is simply to note the Outturn report for 2023 to 2024. I'll ask if you're all in favour, please, members. Okay. Aye. Thank you, colleagues, in which case we will move on to the next report of the Chief Officer of Finance, Housing and Change, and that is on the capital programme Outturn for 2023 to 2024 and Quarter 1 update for 2024 to 2025. Caris, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the main purpose of this report is to provide for members an update on the capital outturn position for the 2023-2024 financial year, the Quarter 1 capital programme position for this year as at the 30th of June, and also to note the projected prudential and other indicators for the current year. So starting with last year, the original capital budget for 2023-24 was approved by Council on the 1st of March last year. It's been revised and approved by Council throughout the year to incorporate budgets brought forward from 22-23 and also new schemes and grant approvals during the year. The revised programme for last year was approved by Council on the 28th of February this year, and it totalled £49.714 million. Of this approved programme, £27.2 million was to be funded by Bridgend Council, and this will include the use of capital receipts, revenue contributions from earmarked reserves and borrowing, with the remaining £22.4 million being funded from external sources. The details of the individual schemes showing the budget available last year compared to the actual spend is detailed for you in Appendix A. Since the last report was considered by members in February this year, there have been some minor amendments made to the programme, and these are detailed for you in paragraph 312. The revised budget for 23-24 was therefore £51.8 million. Total capital spend in the last financial year was £31.8 million. After slippage of £19.4 million and some adjustments to grant-funded schemes, this represents an underspend of £35,000. Slippage has occurred for a number of reasons, and these have been reflected during the year. They include delays in starting projects to enable more detailed survey works to be completed, supply chain issues, and also discussions with some of our external funders. These were reported during the year, and details of the main areas of slippage are provided for you at paragraph 3.1.4 of this report. The report also provides members with an update on the Council's capital programme for this year, since the budget was last approved by Council and incorporates some new schemes and grant approvals. The revised programme for 24-25 totals £82 million. Of this, £43.9 million is to be met by Bridgend resources, with the remaining £28 million coming from external resources. Table 1 in your report shows the capital programme for each directorate at quarter 1, together with the funding of that programme summarised for you at Table 2. Details of the individual schemes within the programme are shown for you at Appendix B, which details the budget available compared to the projected year-end spend as at the end of June 2024. Excuse me. There are currently no projected under or overspends on any schemes at year-end. However, a number of schemes have been identified as requiring slippage to future years, and these are detailed for you in paragraph 3.2.4. There are also a number of amendments to the programme since the programme was last approved, and these are detailed for you at paragraph 3.2.5. Therefore, the revised capital programme is detailed for you in full at Appendix C. The capital strategy gives an overview of how capital expenditure, capital financing and treasury management activity contribute to the provision of services, along with an overview of how associated risk is managed and the implications for future sustainability. To ensure that we monitor this, a number of prudential indicators were included in the strategy, which was approved by Council. In line with the requirements of the Prudential Code for capital financing, the Council is required to establish procedures to monitor both performance against all forward-looking indicators and the requirements specified. Appendix C details for you the actual indicators for 23-24 based on the capital programme outturn, and these confirm for you that the Council is operating in line with those approved indicators. There are pressures in the capital programme, both for the schemes already in the programme and for new priorities that the Council may wish to support. There is very limited new funding available to support new schemes. The current programme is delivering on priorities that have previously been identified by the Council. Where funding is contractually committed, work will be done to ensure those schemes are completed within budget. Where schemes are not contractually committed, it is an opportunity to review whether the scheme remains a priority, whether that priority can be delivered in another way, and also to confirm the funding required to deliver that in that way. Any changes resulting from that review will be reported to Council. If I may, Deputy Mayor, I would just take you to section 9 of this report, where it's recommended that Council notes the capital outturn for last year, notes the Council's capital programme quarter 1 update, approves the revised capital programme, noting the slippage into the year and environments between schemes, and also notes the projected prudential and other indicators for the current financial year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caris. Can I ask for a mover and seconder for the
I'll formally move, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Granville. And do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Thank you. Okay, I'll now take members in the order in which they appear on the screen in front of me. And first is Councillor Amanda Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I fear I've opened the floodgates. I was putting my hand up to make a declaration of interest, not to jump the queue quickly for the first question, and everyone came quickly behind me. I needed to declare a personal interest on this item. Apologies, I wasn't here at the very start of the meeting because I'm Chair of Governors at Coity Primary School and the extension is listed in this document. And I'm also a governor in Bryn Teg and it mentions the all-weather pitch. So it's a personal interest and I have no question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Williams. And then we have Councillor Ian Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could I make a declaration of interest as well, please, with regards to the all-weather pitch at Bryn Teg Comprehensive, where I am a governor? That's possible, please.
Yeah, thank you for that, Williams.
Could I refer to page 76 of the report, and I'd like to ask Janine. Janine, could you please tell me what all this virement from the Waterton depot upgrade budget is? There's a great deal of to-in and fro-in, and it now appears to be a slush fund for miscellaneous purposes.
It's mine. And
Hello?
I haven't touched it.
Hello?
Apologies, Councillor.
No, it's still doing it. Is that better?
That's better. Sorry, carry on, Councillor Williams. You
Shall I
referred
I'll
to
start my question again,
yeah,
Mr. Deputy Mayor. Could Janine please tell me what all the virement from Waterton depot upgrade budget is, please? There's a great deal of to-in and fro-in, which now appears to be, and the budget line now appears to be a slush fund for miscellaneous purposes. Would it not be prudent to put this money into capital reserves, as members of the public might perceive this to be a way of hiding capital reserves?
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. I will bring the Corporate Director for Communities in to respond. Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, I can assure you that that isn't the case, what you just set out, Councillor Williams. What I will say is that we have a capital allocation in against the Waterton depot because we do have ambition to replace that highways depot. However, what is very clear is that we're under considerable pressure as a local authority, not just in revenue, but in our capital programme. And what is important, as Caris has pointed out, is that we use the capital for best value and in the best way possible. So I have a situation, we have a situation as a council where we do need to replace our waste fleet. We have an amount of money for the waste fleet, but it is coming slightly above where we need it to be. So we do have a gap, a funding gap, which we are wiring money from the Waterton depot in order to purchase 5 vehicles. And that is what we're doing with the Waterton depot monies. Now, to be clear, we took 1 point...
Not on that screen.
Sorry, for people online, we're having some technical difficulties here. We're just trying to address those technical difficulties. So hope that they have been addressed now. So please continue, Janine.
Thank you. We took some money out of that last year. It was agreed by council in order that we could do some work at Maesteg Town Hall. However, we have had successfully achieved a grant at Maesteg Town Hall of £250,000, which has now gone back into the Waterton budget. So the Waterton budget is being used in the best way possible in terms of what our council priorities are. So we are wiring some money out. We've put money back in and we are wiring some money back out to cover this waste fleet, because the collection of waste is a statutory duty for us and a priority for our capital program. So just clear. Thank you, Councillor Gebbie. Just to be clear, the Waterton depot work, we do have to do some work there, including a new salt barn, some drainage works, and some reconfiguration of that depot site. And the truth is, we will have to use whatever is remained in that capital allocation to do that work. However, what I would say is when it comes down to capital priorities for the council, we have a capital programme board, and the Cabinet are meeting regularly to look at our capital priorities. So we may have to look at that Waterton piece and not proceed with it if we feel there's other uses for that capital money that we need to prioritise instead. And I think you'll understand we're in an incredibly difficult situation with a finite resource that we have to do the best with. So that depot money is still there. It's still for reconfiguration of that depot, But hand on heart, I can't tell you whether that will go ahead when we come to the autumn and we have a look at our capital programme in detail, because there's an awful lot of things that we do need to do across this borough. We need new waste vehicles, we need to resurface our roads, we need to invest in our cemeteries. I could go on and on. We need to build our new schools. So with a finite pot of money, we do need to look at what's best. So I'll just stop there because I think that's probably more than enough information, Councillor Williams.
Thank you for that, Janine. And next I will bring in Councillor Bletcher, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. And again, for the second agenda item, I'm wanting to piece a few different things together because Councillor Easterbrook said to me it feels quite sombre in here today whilst we're talking about the financial position that the council is in. I want to look at the item that was brought up in the Cabinet yesterday in relation to the additional money that's been requested under this agenda item for the fleet, the replacement fleet of waste vehicles that's covered in the capital programme. Yesterday it was detailed how it was originally authorised under delegated powers by the chairs of committees, but that additional money was being requested. And part of what I've picked up on in the additional money that is required includes money that we're being asked to spend on print wrapping the vehicles that we're buying. And I'm led to believe that's around about £4,000 per vehicle for 5 vehicles at £20,000. If this capital programme is put in front of me today, which includes spending £20,000 on shrink wrapping waste vehicles, I can't support it on the basis that we are told that we don't have any money. If any resident in Bridgend County Borough sees a waste vehicle collecting waste from the roadside, they will know it's from us or Plan B. They don't need £4,000 worth of shrink wrapping advertising on the side of it to tell them that it's doing so. So could I please ask for clarification on whether this capital programme does include money to shrink wrap the waste vehicles that we're being asked to purchase, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bletcher. Leader, does you want to come in?
I can, please. Just to be clear, this is not about shrink wrapping vehicles. This is putting about the BCBC logo on every, which you do on every vehicle. I think, you know, that's livery. The bigger cost is the cameras, the 360 cameras, which will help us deal with safety of the vehicles and insurance claims. And that's on every vehicle we purchase. So if you're suggesting now that no council vehicle should have the BCBC logo on it, we're not talking.
Thank you for that, Leader. So next we've got Councillor Penhill Thomas, please. Oh, right, Councillor Black, please.
Sorry, can I ask for clarity on whatever the wording is? If it's shrink wrapping, it's wrong. But is this £4,000 to put a logo on the side of a fleet vehicle? Because I also believe that the cost of doing so is in excess of the cameras. I can listen to an argument over the cameras because that's on a health and safety ground. But my understanding is that the cameras are cheaper than the livery.
I will bring the Corporate Director for Communities in to respond to that question. And Janine, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we have had, of course I will repeat, it's not shrink wrapping, it's putting the BCBC livery and messages on waste on those waste vehicles. So it's more than just our logo, it's putting information about how you can contact us, messages on recycling, and that is the livery that is going on those vehicles as part of the purchase. When we purchase any vehicles, it does normally include livery, and it will normally, where they're very large HGV vehicles, include the 360 cameras for health and safety grounds. So hopefully that's answered that one.
Thank you for that, Janine. I'll now bring in, I'm sure Councillor Penhill Thomas had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My hand dropped off because I spoke and then I was put to the back of the queue. Sorry. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thanks to the officers for the report today. Councillor Williams has already touched on the Waterton Depot. I was going to say I'm feeling very sorry for that project, but I think Janine's answer covers that. Look, the way I see it is that the capital programme is or should have something at any point in time to excite any one member or all of us. Really, it's the council's opportunity to be ambitious. but I don't think we can see it in separate context to what we've just heard about the outturn report either. We are facing some really difficult challenges. Now, I don't doubt that at any point in time, some of these projects, if not all of these projects, will undergo individual risk assessment robustly. But can I ask the leader and possibly the chief exec, is it the intention of Cabinet to undertake, and senior officers, to undertake a robust assessment, a robust and frank assessment at some point in the near future of what we can genuinely afford to take forward in this capital programme and what will have to be withdrawn, so that we may end up at some point this year with a much slimmer capital programme, but one that is genuinely deliverable? Because when I look at this in the context of the conversation we've already had, in the context of the confidential members briefing on Monday, there are items here that simply won't see the light of day if we're going to continue to have to take challenging decisions, certainly over the lifetime of the MTFS. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell-Thomas. I'll bring the leader in, please, first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Pennell-Thomas. That question is timely because in the last few weeks, as part of the Capital Programme Monitoring Board, there's been a pro forma developed for any future bids and existing bids even to actually help us in the process of prioritising schemes, because it's quite clear that we're not going to be able to do everything we want to do, and there needs to be a process of us prioritising as a council what we want to do, what we're able to do. But there needs to be a lot more challenge, and there will be a lot more challenge with this pro forma document that's been developed by Finance. They're all directorates for any schemes going forward. We'll have to fill out with a full business case. I mean, there's been business case put forward in the past for schemes to be there as they are there now. But this is going to be a lot more rigorous, a lot more challenging, and then we will have to prioritise what we are able to do and what we need to do for our county borough.
Thank you for that, leader. Next, we have Councillor Thomas, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Hopefully my question would be very simple. It's purely clarification, really. But in doing so, could I declare a personal interest? I've put an application form in for school governor at Ysgol Llangynnoed, and one of my children attends that school and one is soon to as well. And my question actually relates to Ysgol Llangynnoed, and in particular the capital programme. All of the proposed works for school, capital projects for school, they indicate the school and actually what the capital work is. So, for example, Ysgol Barogor replacement. What else we got? A new teaching block in Bryn Tirion. But I note for Ysgol Gyfun Gymraeg Llangynnoed, there's no indication of what the works are for, and it's 97,000. And as somebody who's a long time campaigned for capital works at that school, I'd be really interested for clarity on what that entails, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Thomas, and for your declaration. I will ask the Corporate Director for Education and Young People to respond to that. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey. I'm Corporate Director of Education, Early Years and Young People. Thank you for the question, Councillor Thomas, and also thank you for your ongoing support of Welsh medium education. It looks at 3 different areas of support for the school, all looking at items identified by the school themselves. We work very closely with them. One is in relation to the boilers at the school, so part of the money will be used for that. Part of it is around the science block, as you will be aware that some of the activity is required within those science areas. And also, finally, there's an area with additional teaching rooms that we're working with the school to remodel. Hopefully that's helpful, but I can provide you with more granular detail if you wish.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Next, we've got Councillor Martin Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I could talk about the capital programme all day long, as Carys is probably aware by now, but I'll resist the temptation to do that. What I'd like to ask a question and also a clarification. The clarification is, I think it would aid all members if our papers had the outturn cost of each of these projects, because we've got cost in the year, we've got cost in future year, cumulative of future years to come. But what we don't have is a, as far as I can see anyway, it's been a long day, is an outturn for each project. So I'd like to see that if possible. But my question is, last year we significantly underspent our capital program, and it started off, I think we said 69 million, and we outturned at 31.8. This year we propose to spend 82.082 million pounds. How do the Cabinet believe that this council will consider that to be credible when last year we only spent 31.8, and you would have us believe that we're going to spend 2.6 times that this year? If I was sitting on a capital management board, I'd be challenging very hard that either that's overly ambitious, or I'd be asking where the resources are coming from to deliver such an upturn in capital spend. So before we go to approve this capital programme, I would be asking what gives the Cabinet member responsible for this confidence that we are going to spend the money that's proposed to be spent in this forthcoming financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll bring the leader in, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williams. And as you're aware of the slippage, there's various reasons for slippage. Some may be waiting for grant funding, some may be waiting for decisions elsewhere, whether that's planning or various other decisions. The money then is slipped. And there's a lot of money, yes, being slipped, and there's a large programme, 24-25. In the meantime, that money is still working hard for spare machines, which we'll come on to in the next report with the prudential management. But there's no reason for us to not expect those schemes to proceed. But probably some of them will still not be completed again in 24-25 for the various reasons. We haven't got a crystal ball, but I'd like to see and hope that what's there and what's slipped, the schemes are there. After we've done the prioritisation, because there'll be some schemes maybe there will be slipped again through actual what money is available for the programme. We just looked at all the schemes there, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be hoping that those schemes proceed in line with what's in the programme. And as I've stated previously, there's now a monthly capital monitoring board that myself and the Cabinet member of Finance take part in with officers, and that is something that hasn't been a regular account in the past, and there's a lot more focus now and will be on capital and revenue.
Thank you for that, Leader. Next, we have Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor. Going back before the new financial year this year, we were told that Plan B were taking over the recycling and waste collection, and that the vehicles were had 3 years life left in them or so. They were all in good condition. I don't know how many we actually purchased off here, but now it seems that we need to buy 5 new vehicles, and some of the lower mileage vehicles at a cost of 30,000 to refurbish these vehicles. Now, who done the original appraisal on these vehicles? Being an ex-mechanic and I've worked on recycling vehicles, they do take a very big hammering on transmissions, because they're normally first, second gear, reverse gear, the brakes, because they stop, start. And they do take a lot of wear and tear. So why are we now looking at purchasing 5 new vehicles, and who is going to be responsible for the running costs of these vehicles, the servicing, the maintenance, the fuel, insurance? And this is a private company running these vehicles that we are paying for. I'd just like some answers on that, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harrison. I'll bring the leader in, please.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Where do I start? We've gone through this several times in the past. The vehicles we purchased at the start of this contract, and there was a schedule put together. I think the average value of the vehicles we purchased was between £5,000 to £10,000 per vehicle. They're not brand new vehicles. They're 7 years old, and they are, I'll say, beyond the end of life. They're coming to the end of life. But there's nothing wrong with the chassis and the engines and the gearbox. That, on most of them, is pretty, not a problem. There's a lot more life left in them, but they're not doing high mileage. The problem is with the rear ends, the mechanical parts, the crusher part, the customised bit on the back for the recycling, and that's the part that's failing. And I think we all want efficient waste collection service. We've seen what happened earlier this year April, May, with the failure of some of these vehicles. And it's not the engine, the gearbox, it's the failure of the mechanical, the crushers, the collectors. And that's where, if we're going to get an efficient service going forward, and we do own the vehicles, they're not Plan Bs, but they, in their contract, are responsible for running them, the running costs, the revenue, daily running costs. They cover that, that's in the contract amount we pay. But some of the vehicles can be refurbished short term, and they'll get a few more years out of them, and that'll cost one or two have been done, an average of up to £30,000 per vehicle. Beyond that, they become uneconomical to repair. Hence why we've come forward to look to buy 5 new vehicles, which there's a possibility now, if we place the order this month, if it's approved from this council, they could be in place late this year in the autumn. Normally, there's 18-month delivery time, so if we leave it go, we could be 18 months waiting for new vehicles. And who's to say we're not going to be back in the same boat with vehicles breaking down, because one thing you can guarantee, they are busy vehicles, they're well used, and there will be further breakdowns as the vehicles get older. So what we're looking at today is to go ahead and be brave and purchase 5 new vehicles. We'll own the vehicles, but Plan B are responsible for running them, the daily revenue running costs. But there'll be some vehicles there that are not that bad to replace at the moment, but we do need to refurbish the back end of them. So up to £30,000 per vehicle can give us a few more years to enable us to have a rolling programme, and there'll be a future report in the autumn, the director will be preparing to look at the wider fleet replacement programme and the replacement of all these vehicles. But this is a start, and I'd like to think we all want an efficient operating waste collection service, and we'll all support that proceeding today with the purchase of these vehicles and refurbishing 3 more.
Thank you for that, Leader. Next, we have Councillor Winstanley, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a declaration of interest, a personal declaration, as I'm going to mention the two of the schools that I'm a governor of, an LEA governor, Ysgol Berkyscare and Ysgol Afon Afelin. I noticed in the report the mention of the Bridgend West Mutual Investment Model. I would like to point out that there are costs in delay to both the children and teachers in the school, because there's also maintenance costs, because we've had huge problems with certainly one of the buildings where black mold has been discovered and was probably a contributory factor to teachers and children being off sick. So the sooner we can get the replacement schools built, the better. Can I have confirmation from the director that everything is being done to expedite this building project? Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Chair, before the person answers, much apologies, can I request a break so I can move my car? I couldn't get into the wreck, it was so busy, so I had to park it in the room. Any apologies?
What's that? So we'll just get clarification about when the wreck is. The room was 7. The room was 7 o'clock. So is anyone else in that position where their car is in the room and they need to go to the room to make sure that their car's not locked in? Okay. Yes, but by all means leave. Okay. The question was from Councillor Stanley. I will ask the Corporate Director for Education, because it was about schools, wasn't it? So, Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Winstanley. First of all, I share your desire to move this project on at pace. As you quite rightly said, part of the delays here have been a protracted review by Welsh Government with regard to the Mutual Investment Model Programme. And indeed, we're working very closely with Welsh Government and the technical advisors of Welsh Government leads. The Welsh Education Partnership Company is currently at REBA Stage 3. The pre-application consultation will be made ahead of submitting the planning application. That's been concluded now, and we're currently awaiting ministerial approval to transition the scheme. So again, as soon as we know, we will communicate that to elected members, and we're actively continuing to update the 2 schools in respect to the new bills. Clearly, like you, we want to move to these new schools very quickly. They are very exciting projects.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Next, we have Councillor Pratt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If we can go back to the our waste vehicles. Obviously, this council wants to purchase 5. That is with the uncommitted budget of 906,000 with a viament and some borrowing. If we didn't do the viament or the borrowing, how many vehicles are we purchasing? Is there a need for 5? Is this preferential or necessary? I suppose my question is. I'm sure borrowing £75,000 not going to set alarms off at our council. I just sort of, do we need to do it now, or can we go back to the original budget and push that further down the line? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pratt. I'll ask the Corporate Director for Communities to respond to that question. Jean, please.
Yes, thank you. I'll just roll back slightly and just explain why 5. Terberg are the name of the producer who supply the majority of recycling vehicles. In fact, they're one of the biggest suppliers across the UK. And they have produced 10 vehicles on spec, and they've been offered to the market. And 5 of them have gone, and there's 5 vehicles remaining that have been offered. And we have said, yes, please, can we take those vehicles? And the reason for that is when you place an order for vehicles for Terberg, it at the moment is 19 months. So over a year and a half to see a new vehicle. So if we place an order today, we will not see a vehicle till spring 2026. That's a very long time in order to get this fleet replacement programme underway. So there are 5 vehicles there. They are being bought via Plan B, as was proposed by Eunomia, our waste consultants, earlier on this year. We know we're getting them for a very good price, and we should be able to get those 5 vehicles by October, which will make a massive difference to the reliance of our waste fleet, because they're brand new. They won't need as much maintenance, the service will be quicker, slicker, and we can turn things around. Now, ideally, if I'm honest with you, I'd love to have all brand new fleet, and that would be ideal for us, wouldn't it, to get away from all of this. But at this stage, I would like to, for that case, it's a statutory service, bring in those 5 vehicles. If we don't get agreement this afternoon with you, Council, then we will have to buy 4 vehicles, which will be a real opportunity lost for us, because we had a vehicle taken off the road just last week that is past its economic life now. These work very, very hard. If I explain, these are the recycling vehicles with the containers on the back. They're not the RCVs, which are the refuse vehicles that you put the general waste in. So these vehicles do lots and lots of rounds, are very busy. They're low mileage, but it's the components on the back that are critical to us. So what I would say is this is one of the main services of this council. It's your waste service. It will affect every resident and every member sitting in this chamber that we have the best and most efficient waste service. So what I would say, I would really impress on you today that please go ahead with this, because it will help sustain this service going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Janine. Next we have Councillor Ian Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I do believe that Councillor Della Hughes was in front of me, but her hand seemed to disappear.
She's
gone to the back of the queue.
Yes, apologies. I don't know why it disappeared, Councillor Hughes, and I will bring you in first. Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. My hand just going down. I'm not sure why. Just a simple question, really, for clarification. Can you tell me who makes up the Capital Management Board, please?
Thank you for that, Councillor Hughes. I'll ask the Chief Officer for Finance Performance and Change to respond to that.
Yes, thank you for that question. I can answer that one. So it's the the standing membership is the leader, the cabinet member for resources, and the chief exec and myself, and some finance staff who financially manage that programme. But we also do call in colleagues, whether they're cabinet members or directors, depending on the issues that have been discussed on the agenda.
Thank you for answering the question. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Back to Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just as a point of clarity, because we've already discussed the livery and the CCTV cameras upon these new vehicles. I think Councillor Spanswick is mistaken, because I believe the cost of putting or having these sign written is £4,500. Could Janine please confirm that, please? I'm just thinking out loud, because there's £56,000 for 5 vehicles. It's £11,000 each, or just over. It seems an awful lot of money, because the cameras, I believe, are about 2,500. About £4,500 for the livery. And what was the balance?
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Williams. I will ask the Corporate Director for... Did you want to come in? I'll bring you brief, and then I will ask for clarification from the Corporate Director of Community. So, Leader first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, I was incorrect earlier because an email has come during the course of this meeting, which, well, just before the meeting, an email I haven't had a chance to get to yet, but clarifying the detailed costs, which has gone to councillor members as previously. And it does state vehicle wrapping, so my apologies, Councillor Bledsoe. I'm not sure why it's vehicle wrapping, because as far as I'm concerned, it just needs a few BCBC logo stickers on there. So, yeah, but it, no, but hang on now, but it is saying that it's £4,065 per vehicle. So I think that does need to be double checked exactly what we're asking for. And perhaps
I can't vote for that.
Clarify that. The Director will clarify that now.
Okay, I'll bring the Corporate Director of Communities in to provide that clarity, and I'm sure it'll be the definitive clarity that we need on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Well, if anybody has seen the recycling vehicles that go around our borough, you will see that they have messaging all over on 4 sides on the bonnet. They say this is recycling. They've got information, websites, phone numbers. They're not just the recycling vehicles, but they provide an information source on recycling for us as BCBC. And that is what's been put onto those vehicles at our request. They're a way of us messaging to our residents. These are the contact numbers. This is our website. Look here, do that. And that's what's being done. It's a livery that we're having put on this vehicle. If I'm honest with you, the livery that we put on vehicles is at this cost. I think, I have to admit, I think what's very clear here is that this is our waste service, a statutory waste service for this borough. And it's really important that we do this in the right way, and we have these 5 vehicles in to improve the efficiency. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Janine. So, Councillor Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Now we have that clarity, I would like to propose an alteration through a motion that the costs associated to put in livery, and I accept the wrapping, is removed from this capital budget. We've been told this week we have to make brave decisions. We don't have £20,000 to spend on putting livery on waste vehicles. Those are the difficult decisions we've been charged with making. So I would like to propose an alteration to the capital budget that is removed from this proposal.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
So what do you say in the trade? All flash, no cash.
Thank you, Councillor Barrow. Okay, so that a second. Right, okay. No, yeah. So just for clarity, unfortunately, Councillor Colin Davis, because you've left the meeting, you won't be able to take part in any vote or discussion. You wanted to come in. Did you, Councillor Davis? Councillor Paul Davis, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Bledsoe, thank you for the question and the observations. It is expensive, but in my experience with refuse vehicles, as you're well aware of, I won't bore everybody with it again tonight. Every council has these put on them, and as the director says, they're full of information of recycling websites and all different logos which different varying councils use. Obviously, they're all different on different councils of vehicles. Also, the nature of the like Rome equipped type vehicle with all the box on the back makes it extremely difficult to put, it's not just stick one sticker on the side like a sort of the refuse lorry. It's more complicated than that. I think that's what's driving the price up on this. But I do, as as a cabinet member, I do suggest that we put them on the side of the vehicles. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Pratt, you want to come in then?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I understand the point that Councillor Bledsoe is coming from, but I mean there are parts of this vehicle that aren't necessary. I mean, you know, we've argued about the 360-degree cameras. From, if I remember correctly, from Cabinet yesterday, they're not necessarily required, but we've chosen to pay them. So if we want to make those arguments, we could argue that. But from the point of when a BCBC refuse vehicle doesn't reverse into the back of my car because it's got a 360 screen on it, I like to know who it is, and that will be what the library is, especially with the change of law where trade refuse has to be collected. A lot more of these vehicles are going around at regular basis, and I wouldn't want this authority to be blamed for any vehicle damage, because I'm not sure if that's your vehicle or not, and then you'd have to go and find out whether it is. But I do understand the point that Councillor Bledsoe is making. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Then Councillor Harrison is next, please.
I'd just like to ask, when you have vehicles wrapped or sign written, logos, whatever you want to call them, your normal supplier, once the most expensive part is the artwork, once that is saved on their computer, on their records, if you have another vehicle, the price would come down because they already have done the artwork. All they would have to do is enlarge it or make it smaller. So I would like to propose that we just use the BCBC logo so people know whose vehicle it is. Do we need all the other advertising on it? But I don't know who's going to supply the artwork, whether it's going to be someone new or not. But that's how I have always found how it works with my business. But that's me, not you. Thank you.
I'll bring the deputy leader in, please, who doesn't have a hand, apparently. Well,
no, I have two hands.
She doesn't have a virtual hand,
but
she certainly has a hand.
Because
yes.
I do not want my mic going off, because I was not touching my computer. So apologies to anybody's eardrums is what I first want to say. I fully understand and appreciate your amendment. I disagree with it. Any vehicle over 7.5 ton has to have reflective all the way around it, especially when you consider that rubbish is going around our streets early morning. There's a requirement on all in the UK for all vehicles over 7.5 tons to have reflective materials on the sides, rear, to enhance visibility, especially during low light conditions. I would suggest that the livery is required, because otherwise we'll be in breach of legislation in the first instance. I get what you're saying about just the branding bit, but to be really frank, I would expect our vehicles to be branded so everybody knows whose they are. Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. I'll bring next in Councillor Bennett, then Councillor Davis, and then Councillor Bledsoe. Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Can I just check that this is solely BCBC livery and branding, or will it include Plan B branding? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. I will ask the Corporate Director for Communities. Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bennett. I think in the main it's going to be BCBC branding, because it is on our messaging, because the reflective strips, everything we need, because they are our owned vehicles. And of course, we've only got a year and a bit left with Plan B. But if there is Plan B on it, as in the service being delivered by Plan B, it needs to be in an area that can be overlaid and or removed at the end of that contract. But in the main, it is BCBC logo, livery, and necessary hazard warning. Thank you.
Thank you. You knew where I was going with that one. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Janine, Councillor Davis is next, please.
Thanks, Chair. I just like to come back on something that Councillor Pratt said, Chair. I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Pratt, that we wanted the cameras on there. Is that what you said?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I'm happy to stand corrected, but I believe that not all local authority recycling have these 360 cameras. It is an option. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying, but if you want to save costs, that would arguably be a bigger cost saving than the library. Thank you.
Look, can I come back to check quickly? The reason we're having the cameras fitted, Councillor Pratt, is because it's an advice from the insurance company. So it's something they want, which I assume brings the price down, if I'm right, Janine?
Yeah, we are advised on very large, heavy goods vehicles. We have the 360 cameras, not just for increased vigilance for the drivers. It does record, it does help us with insurance, but of course, our valley communities have very small, narrow access streets. So they are very difficult to get in and out of. So it makes good sense for health and safety all around that we have this extra vigilance on the cars. To be on the vehicles, to be honest with you, Councillor Pratt, they're not fitted as standard by these vehicles, and that's why we have to add them on as an addition. But should we run a procurement exercise in the future, it will be part of our spec. So it's just we've had to add these to the vehicles that were from Turburg that were in the main nearly complete in construction. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Janine, next we've got Councillor Bletz and then Councillor Williams. And then what we'll try and do then is bring that debate to conclusion and take it to the vote if there is still a call for a vote. Councillor Bletz, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I thank the Deputy Leader for her information on there. However, if it is standard, then it should have been included in the original delegated power, because regardless of whether we're now being asked for additional money to put livery on it, it would have been standard in the delegated power. So this is not money, and if this is standard, it should be included in the price from the manufacturer, because the vehicle wouldn't be legal without it. So I'm afraid my motion still stands, that we should not be spending £4,000 plus on applying livery to a waste vehicle, and I'd like to confirm that my proposal still stands, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bledsoe. And then finally, Councillor Ian Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, I think you've already summed it up, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move on, go to a vote, please.
Okay, so we have a proposal.
I'm assuming not all in favour?
No. The monitoring officer has said she's assuming not all are in favour of the proposal, so I suggest that we put it to the vote. I'll bring... Oh, yes, did you want to come in, Corporate Director for Communities?
Yes, please. Can I just check what we are voting on? Because the vote is a viament within the capital programme. That's what we're voting on, isn't it? The viament of the additional monies, which, should this viament not go through, will mean we won't be purchasing 5 vehicles. It means we will be purchasing 4 vehicles. That is the viament, because we won't have enough money. But I'm afraid that's what I need to understand. Thank you.
Right. What we'll do through the chair as well, by the way, everyone. I will bring the monitoring officer in, and you can advise on that.
Thank you. Councillor Bledsoe, if you can confirm the wording of your proposed amendment that was seconded, and then I think it would be best if Caris can explain how that would impact on the report before we move to the vote, and then I can explain what we're going to do in the vote.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Thank you,
for that. Councillor Bletsoe, please.
I'll go through the chair after the telling off. My motion is to remove the expenditure linked to the applying of the livery to the waste collection vehicles from the capital expenditure proposal, and that the remainder of the proposal goes through with that removed.
So just to clarify, the camera element can stay. Okay. I suppose we need clarity now from either Caris or Janine on that exact figure, so everybody knows how much they vote into.
Okay, Janine, please.
Give me 1 second. I'll just get that figure up.
I'm just going to ask the Corporate Director for Communities to explain, because there is an element, as I understand, of delivery that is required, potentially legally required, because it'll identify the vehicles. And if that is the case, then I would suggest that that motion is not lawful, because we would not be able to use the vehicles that we have purchased. So can we have some clarity from the Corporate Director for Communities about that, because we need to make sure that the motion is lawful.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. If I just explain, when you buy commercial vehicles, they come unliveried because they sell them to everybody. So it is your responsibility to add livery to vehicles. So we wouldn't expect that price to include the livery. Of course, we've added the cameras because that was a health and safety issue for us, but we have asked Turberg to add this livery for us, and this is the cost of the livery that is going on. So we will have those vehicles completely ready when they're delivered to go off and service our waste, a serviceable vehicle. Now, there are things that we definitely have to put on that vehicle. We have to put the intermittent strips as fluorescent strips, as the Deputy Leader has discussed, and we have to put some form of warnings about reversing, when this vehicle can reverse. We have to put signage on it for tonnage, the size of the vehicle, and other things that are standard for the vehicle testing authority. So there are things we will have to add. So I don't think at this case, the £4,065 per vehicle, I can look to reduce that if we limit the livery to the essential items only that are required, but I don't think we can have, by law, unliveried vehicles on the fleet. Thank you.
In which case that motion will need modifying before it is put to members. The figures will need modifying, but I don't think we've got that breakdown here, have we?
And I suggest we take a 10-minute break so we can see if we can get the figures and come back with some clarity.
We will do that. Councillor Davis, did you want to come in?
I was just going to make the point. I think the monitoring officer made sure that we haven't got that figure now. We know we're working out what's needed and what's not needed at this point, haven't we? So how does Councillor Bledsoe amend it to reflect that? Pardon the pun.
I'll bring Councillor Jenkins has indicated that he wants to come out. I'll bring him in, and then we will have a short break, because we aren't due a comfort break in any event. So we will have a short comfort break, and we will try to establish if the information can be obtained that will enable us to have a modified motion. I'll bring Councillor Jenkins in, and then we will have a 5-minute break then, because we need to establish whether that information is available. Councillor Jenkins, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. Well, I've been listening to Tony and Fro in here, and I am confused. Maybe I should go compare. I don't know. But we've been harping on and listened to since Monday as well the need to make savings. And here we are trying as a council to make savings. And that's what it's all about. I mean, the leader have pushed it to us that we need to make savings. The Chief Executive Officer have put it to us that we need to make savings. The Financial Officer have put it to it, we need to make savings. And if we can make savings on things that are not totally necessary, then I think we should be making those savings. But I'm sorry, but I had to come in to make that point now, because I'm getting pretty frustrated by it, and I need to know where we're going on it. If there is a saving to be made on something that's not essential and is not illegal, then that my view, we should be looking to make savings. Thank you.
I'm not bringing any more members in. I've said that we're having a pause to establish that information. In response to your point, Councillor Jenkins, what I'm hoping officers can establish is whether as part of that the costs whether that can be broken down between essential spend. So I have taken from what the corporate director said that there's certain works that have to be undertaken to those vehicles, and what we need to establish is what is, and if we can establish whether there's essential spend and non-essential spend. So we will try and do that within the next 5 minutes whilst we take a comfort break, and then we will resume the meeting. Apologies to other members who have indicated, but I think that is probably the best way forward. And if that's okay with you, Councillor Pennell Thomas, I will bring you in as soon as we've resumed after the break. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah.